Well, the two things, it can make them a target, I think. Using a mobile phone in the street for other bigger kids are going to take them and stuff. Still worried about radiation issues with mobile phones. Never been particularly reassured about that.
Yeah. I think certainly my children aren't in a position to use them, but if they were travelling independently to and from school, I would possibly see the need for them to have one.
Okay.
I teach in a secondary school, and certainly a lot of the children there tend to have mobile phones so that their parents feel comfortable, and if they're going to be late, if they've been detained for some reason, then at least they know that they're safe. But I think also parents assume it's a way of them keeping track of their children, whereas actually it's not. I mean, it's just a way of keeping in touch.
Well, obviously, they get stolen, and there's that side, but then again, you've got the positive side of they're in contact, able to make contact easily. So, well, it's both sides really. So.
Being mugged or something like that would be a big concern. But I mean, I wouldn't have the high-tech phone, just a bog standard phone that no one else is going to want.
Because you can't always be behind them. Already about the TV, about the computer, you can't be always behind them. So I think one thing less to have to deal with is better than having three things to deal with.
Some distance away from home, he was mugged for it. Really? Even though it was a really old, rubbish-looking phone, it was the principle of taking it off him, even though he's a big kid, but I guess that was the challenge. Really? And my niece also was bullied via text messaging. That's a whole new way to sort of remote bullying, and that was very distressing for her to constantly be receiving these nasty messages and things. And I think in terms of security, I think other than I think it's really hard for kids to understand that text messaging, for example, can be very expensive if you're using not pay as you go. And
by the same token, that isn't really a concern that they're thinking about. They also understand what bullying is all about. Great, here's a new approach. Parents haven't really paid attention to yet. So I don't know. They're useful tools, but like any useful thing, there are two sides to it. But also, as opposed to Ken Livingston's belief about automobiles, once the cat is out of the bag, once the genie's out of the bottle, it's out of the bottle. You can't not have cars anymore. Just because you don't teach sex education in schools in America or give kids condoms doesn't mean they're not going to have sex. So you have to have the phones. The question is, what do you do from there?
I personally got my phone when I started secondary school because I was making long journeys on my own. Okay. And so I think that's appropriate when you're 11 if you have to do a lot of travelling. Right. But I do a lot of children's work with children that are 7 and 8 and they've got mobile phones. Right. And I really don't feel like it's appropriate because these children are carrying around pieces of technology cost 60, 70 quid, and they're just asking to be mugged and stuff.
Until they're really old enough, until they're independent and they need a way to contact their parents.
Okay.
How young is too young? Possibly anything under the age at which they can earn the money to pay for it themselves. So 14 perhaps.
14. Okay.
It's very difficult. If children are using phones just for chatting and gossiping and all of that, then that's very different to children having a phone for a safety issue. So my daughter's too young at the moment, but as soon as she's able to use a phone, I'd probably be happy at times for her to have the use of a phone for should she need to get hold of someone for a safety issue. So I don't think I'd set a particular age on it.
I wouldn't get one before 11 or 12.
Okay. So I'll get one. No.
There's some application in the market right now, like special handsets, where you can pre-program numbers into the phone, so you can only call certain preset numbers. Would you be does this sound like a good idea to you?
Yeah, probably. To make sure that the kid respects the phone as well.
Right, okay. Also, there's things like GPS child tracking, where you can where you can actually, on your phone, you can see where your child is. There'll be obviously a GPS satellite, which you'll be able to see exactly where they are on your own phone. What's your opinion on these kinds of things?
I mean, it's a bit Big Brother, but I think fantastic. Yeah. I don't know if my kid would like it, but I think the parents would like it.
Tracking where the kid is. Oh, well, I think it's a good idea. I mean, of course. Yeah. Obviously, if it's say 14, 15, you have to know where he's going, and because of all these things that's going on at the moment in town. I mean, so many things are happening now. So yes, it's a good idea to track where they go. I wouldn't be against that at all.
Far too intrusive, but to be able to monitor their calls so they're not calling 4 or 5 numbers and stuff, then yes, but no, not to check their messages and stuff.
I think in the worst cases when kids go missing, they're a wonderful thing, but I think for most parents it's not really going to apply.
You don't think so?
No, I think if a child can only call certain numbers, he's not going to bother to take the phone to school. When my niece doesn't have money on her phone, she leaves it home.
Right.
So I don't think if it's not fun, and the kids can't text each other or phone each other, then it's not going to work. And GPS tracking, I think, is a lovely idea in a fantasy way, but I think you've got to trust children. And the more we mollycoddle children, the less they learn how to do things on their own.
Same token, I would say yes to the GPS, but not tell them. Just because we know that they've got it, doesn't mean that they know that they have to get it. That would undermine their belief that they need to call home, but they do need to call home. So I wouldn't tell them, but I'd be perfectly happy to have it. Also, if it gets taken, I want to know whose house it's in. Oh yeah, because I'm going over there because I'm a Yank.